What is going on, y'all? Gamers going back here today with your Survivor. The last 2 weeks recap, review, whatever. It's not going to be a recap like I've usually been doing these recaps because, to be honest, A, I was away last week, and B, if you saw my post on YouTube earlier this week, and you might be able to tell a little bit with my voice, I am still recovering from being a little sick, so I didn't write notes or anything. And there's really not too much to talk about when it comes to notes because the last 2 weeks have not really been all that eventful. Everybody on social media, everybody in the Survivor universe seems to be thinking the same thing and seems to be all reciting the same sentiment at this point, and that is nothing is happening on Survivor right now. Nothing. It is a bunch of people sitting on their hands not wanting to make moves. I saw Wentworth. I saw her on Instagram talk about it. I've seen a bunch of different posts on Instagram about just people not too happy with how players are playing right now. Because we have heard constantly through this season and through this merge, and it all started with David, that Eva and Joe are the two big threats. Eva and Joe, you got to split the duo. And to this point, to the point of this video, and maybe next week is the week somebody does cut into that alliance, both of them are on the show. Both of them are on the show as we speak. And you might be like, well, yeah, they're just dominating the game. Yes, I do think they're making good relationships, but you look at the people that remain on the show and the people that they have just gotten off the show. David, Star, Chris, or not David, Star, Chrissy. Chrissy was before David. David, Star, Mary. All three players that wanted to make moves. Star, obviously, we think could have been really in with Mitch's group and might have been able to maybe get Joe and Kyle, or not Joe and Kyle, get Kyle and Camilla along. Maybe even Shaheen, Mary. Obviously, we know Mary was playing a scrappy game, trying to just get anybody and everybody on her side, and just could never get to that point where somebody would trust her. David, obviously, he got super paranoid about Kyle. He's aware of Kyle's threat level. He's aware of Joe's threat level. It seems like he would have probably worked with Joe, but he knew Kyle and Camilla were dangerous. So my rankings this week, and this is pretty much going to be the highlight of this video, and that's why the video is not super long, is because we're just going to talk rankings a little bit, is pretty much just a queen sweep at the top 4, and then 6 and 5 can go either way. And we'll start off at 6. I think it will be Mitch. Mitch has had plenty of opportunity in this season to have joined David, to have joined Star, to have joined Mary in a potential blind side of Joe and Eva and or Shaheen, maybe even Kyle if you wanted to work with David. Mitch has had plenty of opportunities to get in on a underdog type of alliance and flip and change the script on them. Every single time we hear from Mitch, he knows that the right thing to do is to get Joe out. He knows the right thing to do is start taking the big shots. But he's not doing it. He is not doing it. And I don't understand why he is not doing it. And I'm looking forward to when we get to hear from Mitch after either he gets eliminated, and then obviously I'm a big fan of Mitch. If he wins the whole thing, I would like to hear the rationale behind why were you so reluctant? You keep saying you know it's the right thing, but you just can't do it. Why? It feels like we're missing part of the story there. So Mitch, he's one that I'm just sitting there every week hoping and just praying that Mitch, please make the move. And it's not being made. Mitch is not making the move. And we love Mitch. He's one of my favorite Survivor players on this season. He's a great follow on Instagram. He's a great guy. But the problem right now is Mitch is not making the move. Mitch, I need you to make the move. Is it next week? Maybe. You look at the 6 remaining contestants. Mitch, Eva, Shaheen, Camilla, Joe, and Kyle. You think maybe with Camilla, Shaheen, and Kyle, you have numbers. You might have a 4-on-2 situation against Joe and Eva. Then you're worried about Eva's idol, which, by the way, she has an idol, and a knowledge without power, which I think is now void, so she did not use that. But Eva is got a lot of power right now. Eva has an idol. Joe could easily win immunity. We've seen him at least be in the top 2 this whole merge, it feels like. He's won, I believe, 3, maybe even 4 immunities. He almost won the last immunity where he just barely lost it to Camilla because of his block being flipped the wrong way. Just one block. And it was the most obscure block of them all. It was just the color of the eye. The word was correct. But Joe made one mistake, and I thought maybe that one mistake is going to lead to Joe being targeted. And Joe's name was mentioned, but Joe was not seriously targeted. He was not seriously targeted. Mary knew Joe was a threat. Star knows Joe was a threat. David knows Joe was a threat. Chrissy knows Joe was a threat. Cedric, I don't know what to say about Cedric. Cedric's a wild card. I assume Cedric would vote for Joe because Cedric tried to play a loyal game to some extent. Joe is playing a loyal game. But Mitch, for me, he's got to be 6th this week. I think this is his week. I mean, obviously, there could be a band together against Shaheen. Maybe a band together against Kyle, Camilla. Maybe Eva. But Eva has said, I'm playing my idol. She's playing her idol this week. She's not going home. So, to me, that leaves Mitch, Shaheen, Camilla, and Kyle up for debate. Joe, I imagine he wins immunity. If not, maybe it's Joe, but I can't see it being Joe at this point. Joe just, every time Joe's name is up and about, we see Kyle, we've seen Mitch, we've seen Shaheen, we've seen Eva, all kind of reluctant once his name comes about, saying, okay, let's dial it back, let's rethink things. It's not going to be Joe. Like, Joe is everybody's, like, best friend on this island, it feels like. Then you get to Eva. Eva is our next contestant. I have her at number 5. I think she does get through this tribal. I think she does use her idol. But once that idol comes off of Eva, she has to win immunity. She has to win immunity because they will split Joe and Eva at some point. And Joe right now seems to be the one that is the biggest threat to win a challenge. Eva in her own right has won a challenge, has won immunity. Eva is definitely going to give Joe some strong competition. But right now, if I have to put money on somebody, it's Joe. So Eva, that would put Eva out at 5. So if Eva's my 5th finisher, should I count down or should I just go from, because the next person on the list is Shaheen, then Camilla, then Joe, then Kyle. But let's go to number 4. I got Kyle at number 4. Kyle and Camilla to me are, we'll throw in Camilla here too. Camilla's 3rd. Kyle and Camilla to me are really, really going to depend on one another. I have had Camilla number 1 for a very, very long time in this show. I really think Camilla is playing a great game. I think if Camilla does get to the jury, or not to the jury, the final tribal, she does have a good case. Now the problem is Kyle has to be on the tribe or on the jury. Vice versa. They both cannot be in the final 3. Because if they're both in the final 3, what separates their games from one another? They played it together. The big reveal is going to be Kyle and Camilla. Nobody knew about our duo, even though I think David does. It's going to be like nobody knew about us. We were making big moves. We were kind of just playing the middle. Kyle and Camilla are both in that spot. And I think Kyle is going to get more credit for it. So that does worry me with Camilla. That's why I have Camilla at 3. Kyle, I have at 4 because Kyle, like I said, is going to get the majority of the credit for it. Camilla, I do think, will get Kyle's vote if she is in the final 3 and Kyle is on the jury. But with Joe there, with Shaheen there, I don't know if Camilla could win that group. I think Camilla's best option, and I'll actually go through everybody's best option maybe. I think Camilla's best option, maybe we'll save it for a minute. We'll just go to 2 and 3, and then I'll tell you each person's best case scenario people to go up against. Shaheen is my number 2 because Shaheen, I think, is neck and neck, making really good relationships with people. Nobody on the jury feels burned by Shaheen. Shaheen's made really good relationships. Shaheen's been everybody's right-hand man. Shaheen has kind of played a devious game, but also hasn't really done that up front. Like, nobody on the jury's like, you know what? Shaheen's really just went behind our back and did that. Shaheen knows of a lot of stuff going on, but Shaheen is not really, you think of a villain, he kind of has a little bit of villain to him, but he's not even really doing anything. He's more so just being this fun, kooky character at camp, singing, doing all this stuff, right? And Shaheen knows all this information, and he's using it to his advantage, but it doesn't come off to the point where Shaheen is getting a bad rep around camp. Everybody loves Shaheen, even though Shaheen, I feel like, is just 1 or 2 steps ahead of everybody. That is where I see Shaheen right now. And then number 1, if you couldn't tell, it's the Joe Show. It's the Joe Show, man. I'm a big fan of Joe, don't get me wrong. I'm a big fan of Joe this season. I mean, imagine a season with him and Tony. That'd be really fun. But it's not really well hidden that Joe's winning this season. It's not. Joe is the center of everything. Everybody likes Joe. I'd be shocked if it's not Joe. I really would. He's going to win challenges to continue his run. Joe, I had him at 4 for a while just because I refused to believe that the obvious was the obvious. Joe is winning this game. He is going to win this game if he gets to the final 3. That is why when you are Mitch, when you are Mary, Star, David, heck, even Chrissy, Cedric way back when you're Shaheen, you're Camilla, you're Kyle, you had to get Joe out when you had a chance. You need to get Joe out. Joe is the number 1 target from here on out, and if you cannot get Joe out, you at least have to get Eva out. And if you cannot get Eva out, then you're screwed. You are screwed if Joe makes it to the end. You have to weaken Joe as much as possible. And Joe, I don't know if he'll be weakened. So let's go through everybody's best case scenario. And I think for a couple of these people, their best case scenario will be with each other, right? Camilla, we'll start off with her because we kind of already teased that we'll talk about her best final 3. I think her best chances against Mitch and Eva, and vice versa for Mitch and Eva. Any combination of those 3, their best chances are against one another. Mitch is going to have to tell a story of being the underdog, overcoming all the odds. He knew he had to get Shaheen and Joe and Kyle out, and he knew maybe, just maybe, I stand a chance against Eva. Camilla, I haven't seen much of her game. If this is what you need to say for Mitch, I haven't seen much of her game, but Eva is my big threat here. Eva is the one that is making really good relationships. Eva is the one that has this challenge aspect to her that is hard to beat. I mean, obviously Camilla also won a challenge, so you can throw Camilla in there as well. But I think Mitch has to tell the story of being that underdog, never being in a group, always playing from the outs. Eva, when you talk about Eva's game, if you're Eva, you have to separate yourself from Joe. You cannot look like Joe brought you along. I think she will get Joe's vote. I don't know who else. Probably Star, I would imagine. Maybe, I don't know who else. I'd be interested to see who else. But Eva, I think she got 2 votes locked up there. But you have to differentiate your game from Joe. You have to separate Eva from being Joe's number 1 to being Eva the player. Not just Joe's number 1 Eva the player. And how do you do that if you're Eva? You talk about, I won an immunity. I've got idols. I didn't even tell you about my knowledge without power. Well, I did tell you about that. I didn't tell you about the one where I could leave tribal. Immunity without power, whatever it's called. You have to use those things if you're Eva in this group. And then Camilla, you got to separate your game from Kyle. Like I said, these 3, they're going to have a tough path unless they're against each other. If they're against each other, it's going to be real interesting to see what the jury respects. But Camilla, she has to tell her story of kind of pulling the strings with Kyle, knowing Kyle's got it in with the Joe group and the big strong alliance, and knowing that, hey, Kyle's been my number one, and I've really had to rely on Kyle just putting it in your head, keep Camilla around for one more vote, one more vote, one more vote. We can use her as a number. We can fight, and just having somebody else do your bidding for you if you are Camilla helps. Now, I think that does separate her from Eva because everybody knows about Joe and Eva. Right now, not everybody knows about Kyle and Camilla. So, if you're Camilla, you could say there was definitely strategy to it. Try to pull off that I'm kind of the puppet master here. I was the one pulling the strings. Kyle, he was a big part of this, but one of us had to be here, and I had to be the one for us. So, Kyle. Then I think Kyle's best chance. Kyle cannot go to the end with Camilla. Kyle, in my opinion, probably has to be at the end with Mitch, Eva, and maybe an outside chance he can beat Shaheen. But yeah, Kyle and Camilla cannot be in it against each other. Because I don't think either would. I think whoever the third option would actually win because Kyle and Camilla are playing similar games. But if you're Kyle, you want Mitch, Eva, maybe Shaheen. Shaheen is really confident about his potential tribal or final tribal at the moment. He thinks he can knock out Joe. So maybe not Shaheen, but you might be able to work something around there. Kyle, like I said, for Camilla Kyle was doing this. Kyle's game has been more upfront and more visible than Camilla's. Camilla has been the one behind the scenes, like kind of having this behind the scenes relationship with Kyle, and Kyle's protecting her at all cost. But Kyle's also the one actively getting things to go his way. When they wanted Camilla, they went not Derek. Well, I was going to say Derek. There's not even anybody named Derek. David. They went David. He's constantly had to float out different names other than Camilla. So Kyle, his game's been more upfront, more visible for people. I think he might stand a chance against Shaheen, but definitely Mitch and Eva would be the two that he would want to be at the end with. If you're Shaheen, I think Camilla, Eva, Mitch, maybe even Kyle and Shaheen kind of go vice versa for me. Shaheen wants to go up. Probably his easiest matchups would be against Mitch, Eva, and Camilla. Because you look at Shaheen, everybody seems to like Shaheen right now. Shaheen, I don't think has been burning many bridges, and I do think there's been a lot of strategy to his game that he can definitely talk about. And then maybe he can finally get that immunity that he was talking about last week. So we'll see what Shaheen can do. But I think Shaheen stands a good chance. I think people really do like Shaheen. And then obviously Joe. I think Joe, if he makes it to Final Tribal, it's over. Like, everybody on this season loves Joe. I mean, I can look at just the potential jury members right now. Or the jury members right now. Cedric, I think he'd probably lean Joe. Cedric's a little... I don't know where his votes would really lie, but Cedric, you'd assume, probably goes Joe because of loyalty. Then you get Chrissy, who I think Chrissy, while she did talk a big game about like not wanting this group, if Mitch isn't there for Chrissy in the end, I think Joe is her vote probably. David, I think I don't know if he'll vote Joe. David's really salty. And shout out to David. He was just sitting there crossing his arms when they voted Marriott. I don't know if he's voting Joe. Joe, you might have lost David's vote. I don't know what to tell you there. Star, I think Star just respects a good game. She'll probably vote Joe. Mary is going to vote Joe. Mary is 100% going to vote Joe, I'd imagine. Because Mary, while she knows, like, hey, Joe was the reason I got out, she also knows, like, Joe is the reason I got out. Like, I don't think Mary's one to hold a grudge. Then you look at the potential jurors. Eva, that would be a guaranteed vote for Joe. Shaheen would be a guaranteed vote. Mitch would probably, I don't know where Mitch would vote, to be honest. Kyle would probably be a guaranteed Joe vote. Camilla, actually, Kyle and Camilla, depending on if each other are in the final three. Either way, Shaheen, Eva, and maybe Mitch all would be good chance Joe votes. So you look at all the potential jury numbers and who could be where and what. Joe's got a pretty good chance. Joe has got a really, really good chance at the moment. I'm rooting for Camilla. I will throw that out there. I want to see Camilla win this game. Unfortunately, though, even though I'm a big fan of Joe, I think Joe is going to win. It's that simple. But for the longest period of time, I have been saying Camilla. She's going to win the game. Camilla. Please, Survivor, please let me be right, because that would be absolutely awesome if Camilla were to win. But she did fall down to number 3 this week in my rankings. Anyways, let me know down below what you've been thinking of the last couple weeks of Survivor. Are you like everybody else and thinks that maybe it's a little bit of nothing's happening? Or are you like me that now things are getting interesting, I guess? Just the last few weeks been okay, but getting excited for the end at least. At least there's going to be some, if you get a Shaheen, Joe, Kyle combination in the final tribal, it will be fireworks in tribal, but I don't know where it's going. I'm excited to see what happens. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.